Welcome everyone to another episode of the L2R2 PlayStation Podcast. My name's Fonzie. I'm joined by my co-host, indie game dev, and my UK bruv from another mum, Callum Monroe. Callum, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm excited. A few hours to go till 12 a.m. and then I can play Last of Us 2 until I probably fall asleep at about an hour later because I'm getting old now.
Yeah, how much time do you think you're going to jump into Last of Us? Because you're waiting till midnight, right, to try it. That's always the
Yeah.
debate. It's like you get to play it at midnight, but you're also chipping away at time to sleep. So like, how long do you think you'll
Yeah.
stay before you just quit, go to sleep, and then try again later?
I don't know. I'd like to think I could probably get a couple of hours in, but it depends how excited I get and how much like adrenaline it builds to sort of give me some extra energy. But yeah, we'll see.
I'm also kind of weary of, because with the first Last of Us, that opening level, that opening scene is such a punch in the balls, and like
Yeah.
it's guttural, it's really
Yeah.
deep and raw, and so I wonder how. I imagine they're gonna also come full force with that beginning level this time. I just can't imagine what it's gonna be.
Yeah, and I don't know whether it's gonna be like a really long intro as well, like maybe like a long cutscene or like a long sort of like not really gameplay heavy part. So hopefully it'll be like a bit more like right into the action, because I think that will probably like give me a good taste of the game to sort of start me off.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think they will. They like to kind of change what we expect with the beginning. It seems like Naughty Dog lately, especially with The Last of Us, they kind of somewhat flipped it around by you playing as his daughter. I forget the name of Joel's daughter, Amy or something. Or
Sarah.
Sarah, there you go, yeah. So playing as her, and experiencing that whole, you see the downfall, and then they flash forward 20 years, 15 years. I think they'll do something like that, something we're not expecting, and I imagine more of that too. Like from what I've understand with the embargoes, Sony's really clamped down on like what they can talk about, and there's this whole half of the game, like second half of the game, that they're not letting anyone talk about. So they must do something drastic for whatever the last half of that game is.
Yeah, for sure.
Nice, Callum. Well, how you been? What you been playing this week?
Yeah, I've been alright. Just same old. Just inside all the time, and the weather's been hit and miss as well, so it's a bit more depressing. I haven't actually played anything on my PlayStation all week at all. I've been a terrible PlayStation user, because I've actually been playing Xbox games on my computer.
Oh damn!
All week. So
what you playing over there?
So it's not. So I've been playing mostly some Gears Tactics. I'm really enjoying that at the moment. It's got like a really like addicting gameplay loop to it that's keeping me sort of coming back and thinking about it. Bit more of Gears 5 as well, and I think that's about it, to be honest. I haven't played too much really. I've just been, don't really know what I've been doing, to be honest. It's all been such a blur.
Yeah, same here.
It's just I've been doing something. That's all I know. What about you?
Do you ever? I feel that way sometimes when I'm driving. I'll notice I'll be driving, to whatever destination, and I'll like get there and just forget. Like I just have no memory of how I drove there. Obviously, I was doing it. I was obeying the speed limit and like staying in the lane, but I completely just zoned out. But somehow,
well, as far as you know, as far
as I know, I'm not like scraping cars along the way. But like I'll completely zone out, where it's like just 2% of my brain takes over driving, and I'm just like zoned out. It's very weird, but like it'll happen every once in a while. It's like, well, how did I get here? Like I just have no recollection of the drive.
Yeah, I get that a lot. When I have a job, when all this isn't going on, I have to drive like 20 miles there and 20 miles back every day. So a lot of the time, which I probably over in your ends, that probably doesn't sound like quite a lot, but that's like nearly the whole of Britain over here. Like sometimes, especially if it's like a really like if I'm going like the sort of motorway route where it's a bit more boring, I'll sort of zone back in and then be like, wait, where am I? Like how many like exits away from where I need to go am I?
Right.
It's kind of like the next step to falling asleep, isn't it? Like where you're awake, but you just have no idea what's just happened for the past like half an hour or so.
Yeah, it's strange. And just like when you mentioned operating a week like that, that's how this week has been for me too, where it's just like I kind of look up and days
just
have passed.
autopilot. Yeah.
But yeah, same here. As far as the game goes, I haven't played a whole bunch. I did jump into Fortnite, of course. Like they had a new season. They finally changed the map a little bit, added some water stuff. jumped in with my nephews, and they're huge nerds for it. So I'll jump in every once in a while to kind of pick their brain and what they're thinking. It's kind of funny because they're like 7-10 years old, and so they're very fickle. So when there's a new season of Fortnite, they're always like, oh yeah, the last season sucked and this season's okay, but like they play it all the time, so they just talk so much shit about it, but they love the game. They just can't admit that they do. It's very strange.
That's what my little brother's like. He's 11, and like, because I don't like Fortnite, as you know, and like I'll always joke around with him and be like, oh, why are you playing this like crap, and then I think like because they're young and like easily influenced, I think like next time I'll see him, he'll be like, oh yeah, I hate Fortnite, but he still plays it all the time. And I always say to him like, look, if you love it, like you love it, like don't say you hate it. Like he's it's just, it's insane. Like every single year after it came out, I'd be like, right, this will die down now, like every other multiplayer game does, but it's just not going away. And well, they're saying that I haven't seen as much stuff about this season as I normally do. I didn't even realize there was a new season, to be honest. I normally know just inherently because it's everywhere at all times. But this one, I don't know, it might just be me just not, like we were saying, just being an autopilot, not really taking in anything. But yeah, I wasn't sure if it's sort of maybe dying down, or maybe that's just me being hopeful.
Well, they just had, before they switch into the new season, they always have these events that end the last season where they like destroy stuff. And I was talking with Gavin the other day, that stream on Twitch was like one of their highest streamed events ever. So it's like that demand is still going up, especially this season went longer than usual. And so everyone is just, super hungry for more content. And you think they kind of lose momentum, and they just keep going strong, something about it. And I think if I didn't have my nephews, I wouldn't be tied so hard into it. But because they love it, I like to have something that I can talk to them about. And also just give them shit about. And so, I like jumping in, figuring out what's going on. And then I'll play games with them too, and matches, and hear them complain about how, season 3 was the best. And like they wax poetic for like these things that aren't that old. And they just like, it's very strange to me, but it is what it is. It's quite strange. I think like for me as well, because when I was 11, I'm pretty sure like there was no real, like in terms of like console playing, there was no real multiplayer options or anything like that. It was still very like unknown to me at that age, and my little brother's been playing online since he was far younger than 11. So it is kind of like, and it's such a huge part of your life. Like you come home from school and you play games with your friends, and that's what he does. And so it's going to be interesting to see how that like changes people and shapes them differently. Because I mean, it is. I think I probably started playing multiplayer properly when I was probably like 13, 14 or so with like Call of Duty 4. I think that's when I first really got into it. And from then on, it was just like a whole new world, wasn't it? It's kind of like its own culture, and it's something that's like so big now that it's just like become a part of everybody's life. Is like the whole, just the jokes about multiplayer games and game chat and party chat and all these things. They're just like such kind of like inside jokes just between everybody. So it's going to be interesting to see how that influences like the next generation as well. It is strange, because I mean, from the outside looking in, and I grew up, playing multiplayer games as well, but it was definitely a later thing for me too. I even remember like the transition where it became more of a normal thing. Like I think one of the like Halo 2 was big, where you could play that online. I had an Xbox that could do that could connect online, and it was huge. But these kids kind of grow up, and that's the standard. And it's I guess it's easier for like adults, maybe even like fully removed from how nerdy we are, to see kids just like playing online and kind of like melting their brain away. At the same time, they're building these communities, and they're like always with their friends. So that's kind of like that's the way that if you can do it. If you can't be around each other, it's like then if you play online, you have your group of friends, you're growing with them, you're playing with them. It's like that's a cool setup, and it's now super easy to do. Like before, it was not something that was easy. You had to have proper connection, and now you can grab a Switch, and just jump on there that way. So it's super easy now, and there's an argument for the fact that they're maybe having stronger minds because they're actually with their friends longer and having these communities, assuming these communities are not toxic and just terrible, but they're still with their friends and way more than we were, I guess. For sure. That's a good point. We'll see. Well, Callum, so no games then besides just kind of living life and doing that stuff. So just like I said, just the Gears of War stuff, and
That's about it, really. I downloaded a Lord of the Rings card game.
Oh, damn!
Because it was on Xbox Game Pass, and as you know, I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fan, and me and my friend were sort of talking about giving that a go, and it was horrendously bad, like so boring.
Damn.
And to the point where like I played a little bit of it and then I just wanted to play anything else. So I was sort of like saying to my friend who was still trying out, I was like, "Come on, just come off of it because it's not good. It's not good."
Yeah, at some point you just gotta realize, you know what, this isn't gonna get any better, so we might as well just stop playing. I know those card games are huge though. Like my buddy Gavin loves them, and there's super. There's a bunch of options. They're super deep, and they never click with me. But maybe with the right, media, if they take over something that I care about. Like I'm a huge Matrix fan, so maybe if there's a Matrix card game, I don't know how that would work, but maybe I'd be into that.
Well, I think I'd like a card game. Like, I'm sure if I tried like Hearthstone or Magic the Gathering or whatever other super nerdy card games there are, I'm sure I'd probably like it. But I think this one just in particular, it didn't, like you were saying, like it had no like depth to it. It just felt really like surface level, and it just wasn't fun at all. And I'm like the biggest Lord of the Rings fan. Like I love War in the North, that Lord of the Rings game that everyone hated. I absolutely love that game. Lord of the Rings Conquest, another really awful Lord of the Rings game. I love that as well. Like normally if it's Lord of the Rings I'll just love it, but this was that bad that I couldn't even love it.
Gotcha. Yeah. You know what I did pop in a little bit just because I'm super excited, can't wait for it, was I played the original Last of Us Remastered again. I was playing through that, maybe about the first like 2-3 hours. Playing through that and just super stoked, can't wait, and so just kind of trying to scratch some of that itch. And
a few of my friends are going through Left Behind because they haven't done that yet for whatever reason, and I think Left Behind's a good one to play before Last of Us 2 because you play as Ellie in it. It seems like there's a couple of mechanics that were new in Left Behind that are going to be in the second one, like being able to like coax infected over to your enemies to sort of help them like even the odds.
Oh right, that was a thing.
Which I loved that in Left Behind, and I've heard that that's going to be a thing in the second one. So I think Left Behind's probably a good little thing to play if you can't wait any longer.
I forget about that one as well because that, I guess in my mind I always pictured it more of the story-based stuff because it is definitely focused on filling the gaps with Ellie before she gets bitten and her friend Riley, and then there are the combat mechanics. I forget about it, and they also bridge the gap between sometime when Joel was sick, like what she did to kind of get him back on track and stuff and get the medicine and all that. But I forget about that one. I haven't played that since it came out, honestly.
No, I haven't either, and I think the main thing that stuck with me from that DLC was the new combat mechanics because although there is a part where you play as Ellie, it's a very scripted moment in the first game, like when you meet with David and everything. It's very very much a scripted part, so you don't really get to approach situations as Ellie like you do in Left Behind, where you have to think, and she's a lot weaker. She can't run up to enemies and melee them like Joel can. She's obviously got a lot less health, so you have to be a bit more careful. I don't think that's going to be a thing in the second one. I doubt that she's going to be noticeably weak. I mean, I'm sure she will be weaker, but because Joel's an absolute beast. But I think that those sort of mechanics that force you to sort of be a bit more maybe stealthy or a bit more just think logically. I'm excited about that for Last of Us 2.
Yeah, for sure. The ability to pit the humans against the clickers, like that's a big deal, and they really didn't do that in the original one. So there was always like combat zones that were separate from each other. So they need to, and I love that idea of just pitting the enemies on each other. I can't wait for it. And you mentioned like the different mechanics as Ellie. I know they've talked about in this one, and there's plenty of gameplay that I've just not tried to not watch, but like from the trailers, from what they've talked about. Because she's lighter, smaller, she can run faster, she can slip through a lot more geometry to kind of get away from interaction. So she is more nimble that way. They balance it that way. I think you can jump or climb. You can do other just more acrobatic stuff as Ellie. So that's how they're balancing that mechanic. But yeah, man, can't wait. I really want to see what they do with the...
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
It's really starting to kick in now.
Yeah, we're in the home stretch. It's kind of like I was driving around, me and my wife, and I had this weird... And it's such a dumb feeling, but this depression that's already setting in for the fact that eventually I'm going to beat this game and I'm going to be in a world where The Last of Us 2 is over. Yeah. It's like we've been waiting so long for this game. And
don't worry, though, because Ghost of Tsushima is next month, so don't worry too much.
That's true. Thank you for that. I needed to call you right then and there for some moral support because I didn't realize that.
The only reason I think that is because I've already had that sort of that moment where I was like, oh no, it's going to be over probably after this weekend. But then I remember Ghost of Tsushima, and it kind of made me feel a little bit better. So I'm passing that on to you to try and help you out.
And I'll definitely, replay it. It's not like it's one and done. Like there's the whole survivor mode where it's brutally hard. There's of course there's going to be dialogue that you missed. Like that was in the original one. There's dialogue that I missed. So I'll go through that and collect all the trinkets. And I did watch Digital Foundry did a breakdown of the two different models, like the base PS4 and the PS4 Pro, and they said they all seem to run fine. I think they kind of brought down the options a little bit. It's not you can't do like a 60 frame per second mode. It's all 30 frame per second capped there. But otherwise, because I was worried like how is this going to run on the base model, but apparently it does. And kudos to Naughty Dog for making that engine sing as it does.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, Naughty Dog have worked on this console. I think we touched on it a couple of weeks ago. Is that we're so far through the PlayStation 4's life cycle now, and Naughty Dog have only developed games for that system, so they know that console like nobody else. So they know exactly how to push the right buttons and extract everything they can out of it. So and I mean, you just know a studio with a quality like theirs are going to make sure that this runs well. And it looks amazing. It's the best looking game I've ever seen for sure. Because I know that people are always like, oh, well, you can, a lot of like multi-platform games, you can turn the textures to higher quality, but none of those games have the amount of artistic quality put into it than this game does. So for me, I think it's definitely the best looking game out there.
Yeah, man. Geez, we're so close to it. I'm wondering have you been thinking ahead at all? Like, what do you expect to find with the story? Like, are you thinking of just like story beats, or what are you expecting answers you're expecting to find?
I don't know. It's weird. It's weird actually. I was thinking about this earlier, and I haven't really thought about anything about the story, to be honest. About what might happen. I think Joel will die. I think that will happen.
I thought he was already going to be dead. Like the way they did the trailers, where he was. I think that first original one where they showed off at. Was it not PAX? It was like one of the PlayStation events where he just kind of walks out of this like mist and he's very floaty and
he looks like a ghost.
And I just don't know. And then he shows up in the next like full blown trailer at the end where he's like, "You think I would let you do this on your own?" It's like he's so old. It's like, why would you bring him along? How does he survive in this world? I don't know. I think there's stuff they're not telling us for sure. If he's not already dead, I think we will see him die. That's gonna suck. But
yeah. I think there's gonna be a lot of. And I've seen like barely any of the trailers or anything, except maybe like the first two, and I think the most recent story trailer I saw as well. But I imagine there's going to be a lot of focus on the ending of the first game, obviously, because that is where the unanswered questions lie. Because I know Naughty Dog didn't want to make a sequel at first, and everybody wanted it, so. I think the main want for wanting a continuation of the story comes from that cliffhanger, so I think that's going to be a major part of the story. I imagine that's going to play into it quite a lot.
Also, what played into that depression earlier was that there were not, are we going to get something like this again? I think this is such a huge property. They basically built a very successful franchise. I think this is definitely the last that Naughty Dog handles it. But you could theorize that we see another team that Sony trusts tackle like another story in the Last of Us universe. There's still a deep universe they can mine for other stories, other experiences that are separate from Joel and Ellie. I don't know if this is the last we'll see. I think it might take some time, but I think it's safe to say that we'll see other content from this.
Yeah, I mean, something I'd love to see is just from playing Gears Tactics is like a tactics game for Last of Us. I think that'd be really cool. Just because the setting itself is so nice, and because of the camera angle, it like captures a lot of the environment, so that could look quite nice. And I think that could be quite fun with having clickers, obviously, and things like that. And I just love those kind of games like XCOM and like these like turn-based sort of combat games.
Yeah.
I think that could be quite cool. And obviously we've got Survivors coming as a separate standalone game.
Yeah.
Which is going to be big, and I think if anything that will just carry on the sort of love for Last of Us and the sort of want for more in that universe. So yeah, I think like you said, I think that will help spur on maybe another studio taking it over or adding something into it. But yeah, you got to be careful because it's a very grounded story, a very grounded and well crafted world with like really, really well crafted characters. So I'm sure they'll probably be very protective over it as well, because I know there's been a lot of rumours of them handing off Uncharted to another studio. But I think Uncharted's different because Uncharted's a bit lighter, a bit more flexible in terms of like having something fun that isn't quite as lives up to the other games or whatever.
Right.
Because I mean they've already got Golden Abyss on the Vita and things like that. So yeah, I think Last of Us may be a little bit too special to Naughty Dog to maybe hand off, but I don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
I think that Sony understands that as well, and they would definitely only give this away to a developer they trust for sure.
Yeah.
And give them the time to work on it in secret, and where if what they work out is a dud, they just kind of cancel the project. I think they're super concerned with making sure they trust whoever works on this. But I mean, you mentioned that Survivors, that whole multiplayer aspect that has been separated. That's got to be something that's going to be cross-gen, right? Because you can't have that stuck to PS4 with the PS5 coming out this holiday. And I imagine that whole multiplayer coming out maybe 2021, sometime in 2021, that's got to be a PS5 game as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'd even go as far to say it could even be a PS5 exclusive. It could be that it's going to be a launch game for PS5, because we were saying that they're going to need a multiplayer game to draw people in on PS5, and that could be it. And you never know, it could be that they'll then package that with like a Last of Us 2 like fully upscaled, up-res version that comes bundled with Survivors or something like that. There could be something like that.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I'm super excited. I don't know what else to say besides jumping in and playing it. I'm very nervous just because of highly anticipating it. I'm definitely gonna set the mood, turn the lights down and just get into it, man.
Yeah, for sure. I might even bring my PlayStation 4 out here so I can play it on my nice monitor rather than, because my TV's like quite far away and like up high from my bed, and I want to like be able to like place my eyeballs upon the screen whilst I'm playing it.
Oh yeah, I agree. So let's get into some of the news we got here. So there's a lot of breakdown on the PS5. So last week was a PS5 event, and of course more details came out. So I have kind of a compilation of all the details from Sony, from other outlets, just getting the actual the details out again. So we got from IGN first. We have what PS5's different versions could mean for the price. So this is them kind of picking apart how much is this box going to cost now with the two models, and they had some good points to kind of compare some stuff. So we have Whitson Gordon has the article here. After months of piecing together information about the upcoming Sony PS5, we've finally gotten a look at the console's unique design, along with the reveal that a discless digital edition will also be in tow. We didn't, however, get any more hints about the PS5's price, though the presence of a digital edition is promising. We're assuming the discless PS5 will be more akin to the Xbox One S All Digital, which launched for $250 last year, $50 cheaper than the disc-enabled Xbox One S cost at the time. Given that the PS5's optical drive is a UHD Blu-ray player like the Xbox One S, we wouldn't be surprised to see a similar price difference between the two models. I'd be surprised if the digital edition came with more than $50 savings. We still don't know what the console's final price tags will be, though, and it's possible Sony hasn't landed on a final number either. Bloomberg reported in February that Sony's manufacturing costs lie around $450 per unit. Given that the PS4 was estimated to cost $381 to manufacture, with a list price of $400 at launch, a sub-$500 price point for the PS5 isn't out of the question, depending on how much a loss Sony wants to take. A low price is not guaranteed, though. Another Bloomberg report said that Sony was expecting a list price of $499 to $549, which may be more realistic. On the higher end, a recent Amazon UK listing for the PS5 showed a $599 price tag, about $746 American, though Amazon claims that was an error. Assuming those rumors are all discussing the disc-based version, that means we could see the digital edition coming in at a slightly more palatable $450 if we're lucky. If the optical version costs more than that, I've heard some hope for the best and expect the worst folks estimate as high as $600. That extra $50 in savings even more welcome. Yeah, what are your thoughts? So if we compare the fact that we have a disk drive versus a diskless version, all digital, what is the price discrepancy? What could we imagine to expect when this thing finally launches?
Well, I think the $50 is. I probably wouldn't say that's a fair comparison to make with the Xbox One S, because the Xbox One S, whilst it had 4K Blu-ray playback, apparently from what I've heard, the 4K playback isn't very good when you use a 4K Blu-ray compared to sort of the dedicated 4K Blu-ray players. Also, I imagine that you'd need a top range 4K Blu-ray drive to play 4K games in 4K. Maybe, I don't know. So I think that maybe the drive that would be missing from the digital PS5 would probably be a bit more expensive than the one that's missing from the Xbox One S, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. It might be that the digital one's going to have a larger SSD inside, so maybe they'll be the same price.
That's what I was thinking too. I don't know, now that I have time to simmer on it, if that's necessarily the case. I wonder if they'll just come with the same stock, hard drive, but...
Yeah, because I mean, to be fair, you still need to install the discs onto the console anyway, so you don't really save that much room from having a disc drive or not.
Right.
I suppose. So yeah, I don't know. You'd have to imagine there's going to be a price difference. I think. Yeah, I really don't know what kind of price we'd be looking at. I think maybe like a $50 would probably be accurate, despite what I just said. But yeah, I don't know. It's such a hard one, the price, because we really don't have any idea. I like to say $499 or $549, but that's just because they're the prices that have been thrown around by other people. That's not me basing it off of sort of any like genuine knowledge I have. So yeah, I'm not too sure. I know that a decent 4K Blu-ray drive to buy separately, so for like a PC, is about £120. So they're expensive. Just the disc drive. So they are expensive. So yeah, I'm not sure. Really not sure about the price.
Someone brought that up on another outlet too. Those disk drives for 4K players for PC often let you write on the disc as well. So I wonder if that adds to the price. And if this is for a console, it's just going to read only. So maybe that's how they bring that price down.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
It's hard to say. Do you think they still... are we going to see a $500, $550? Do you think they get close to $600? I feel like you're dead in the water if you touch $600 again.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, because it was $600. Was the PS3 $600?
Yeah, there's like two models, right? But I think it was like $500 or $600. One of the models for sure was $600.
Yeah, see that's where the economy sort of changed quite a lot, because over here with the pound, when the PS3 was announced, it was £425.
Okay.
So I suppose that's fairly equivalent to $600 at the time. But now, I mean, if the console's going to be $549, it will probably be £549. So it sort of shows how that sort of economy's changed, and the pound and the dollar are not too dissimilar anymore. So that's quite interesting. Yeah, I didn't actually realise that price point had been hit in dollars before.
Right.
So for us, in fact, that's even stranger, because for us, the most expensive a console's been is £425. So if this thing comes in at £500 or £550, that's already like way more expensive than anything we've had yet in the UK, because the PS3 at £425 was the most expensive console we've had.
Gotcha. Interesting. Yeah, I only think of that from that American perspective, but yeah, it's a number. It's a title you don't want to be close to again, at least from our side of looking at it, because it had such negative press. But maybe you can spin it a little bit differently in different regions.
Yeah, for sure. I think Canada's always one to look at, and Australia, where their money's a lot different, sort of in terms of the exchange rate. So I always see like a lot of like Canadians sort of being like, oh, you only pay $40 for that, we pay $9,000 or whatever.
Yeah. I imagine their exchange rate's got to be equivalent, though. It's got to be. So yeah, it seems like more. I would imagine, or they're honestly playing way more, but I just can't fathom that. But yeah, it's tough, because also what comes down to theorizing the price is the specs. And one of the articles I have on here, it's just kind of a breakdown of the specs that we know of. I don't want to get too much into it, but when you compare the Xbox Series X to the PS5, they are very similar in tech specs, but I know the Xbox does kind of inch away from it with some of the teraflops and whatnot. So if the PS5 is going to be the most expensive one, you'd have to imagine the Xbox Series X, which is slightly more powerful, would have to be even more expensive than that. And I can't imagine either of these want to have that race at the top like that. I feel like they want to try and bring this down. So I would expect if anything in these two consoles, the Xbox to be the more expensive one, the PS5 rather, to be $50, cheaper somewhat, or they hit the same mark. But I don't expect them to go beyond that in the US $600 mark.
No. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think in terms of like comparing specs, it's always difficult with consoles because they're so custom.
Right.
It's hard to look at the numbers and take them for what they are, because it's all about how the system speaks to each part, and how it works and how it runs and how efficiently it runs. And we've got like the custom SSD in the PS4, we've got the extra teraflops in the Xbox. I think there's just so many different things that I'm sure they'll end up running at very, very similar performance rates. And but I think for Xbox, I think they would do better to undersell the PS5 to be cheaper, because they need a way to, especially right now. I mean, it might change when they reveal like Halo and all their exclusive games. But at the moment, with PlayStation 5 having a relatively positive sort of reception to its reveal, you'd imagine that Xbox would need to do something to try and get in the hands of people who are still on the fence.
Yeah, they have to price theirs competitively if they want to stay in this race. And there's still rumors with the Xbox that they're going to reveal some kind of mid-range model. There's this codename Lockhart that keeps floating around. That's the rumor, is that, and it's getting close to the point where they have to announce it if they are. But it's like some kind of halfway point between Xbox One X and the Series X. It's like a slightly less powerful one. They can still play next-gen games. I don't know where that fits in the market, but apparently there's another one that they're promoting, and maybe that's the cheaper model that price-wise competes with the PS5, and then they have their super high-end Xbox Series X. I don't know. It's still rumors, but it seems to muddy the waters if they throw another mid-range console in there.
It seems like they're digging themselves a hole as well, because like Sony have been saying about the PS5, if they continue to try and make their games work on previous generations or weaker consoles, then that means that developers are going to be held back, and they're going to have to, not push the boat out as far as they possibly can, because they have to think of the hardware limitations. And for Xbox to constantly be talking about our games work on every Xbox One or Xbox X, whatever they are, and we're going to do a mid-range one, it's like there must be a point where they'll have to start saying, right, this game only works on these Xboxes, doesn't work on these ones. Now this game only works on the Series X, it doesn't work on the mid-range. It's just going to get so confusing, not only for the consumer but for the people developing games as well, because they're going to have so many things to think about. So unless they've got some like incredible specific engine that the Xbox exclusive developers can use that allows them to downgrade certain things in their games that allow them to still be as technically advanced as possible for the new generation of consoles, but still be some way restricted enough to play on the older ones, then I don't know how that's going to work.
See, I have those same thoughts, although you could look at it as just like the PC world. You have your low-end specs that are developing for, mid-range, high-end. It seems like Xbox could be just making it like that, where their ecosystem is the potato basic model is that Xbox that launched 7 years ago, the Xbox One. Then you have the Xbox One X. Then you have the Series. So maybe they're kind of developing just a 3-tier development cycle, where it's like the developers can just kind of shoot for each mark, the 3 different versions of their game, just like you would for a PC game. And that seems fine. That's the way that they'll show off but then they're always at this battle where they have to show off like 3 different versions of the game, or only show the high-end version to consumers. It's tough. Where PS5, they just have to show a PS5 model running, a demo.
Exactly, running. Yeah, and I think that's where the problem's going to come, is that you know for a fact that every PS5 exclusive game has been made solely for that system. The developers have had no restrictions, no constraints in terms of technology. It's going to be the best that it possibly the technology will allow it to be. Whereas with the Xbox, it's the same as when games are made for a PC. They have to be developed for the lowest common denominator of the audience they're going for, which is why so many games are optimized at like 4K and don't run so well at 4K, and when you start to get into those areas, it's a little bit tougher to get things running well. Not just because of the general more power that's needed, but when you look at like games at these certain resolutions, you see these dips in performance that are sort of uncharacteristic of how it should dip. So I think for consoles, I think it's a dangerous thing to do, because not only are consoles well known for being a simpler way for people to play games, nobody wants to worry about should I upgrade to this? Is this game going to run okay on this?
Right.
Nobody should have to worry about that. And I think that the ideology from Sony, where it's just like, this is the PlayStation 5, this is next gen, this is where you want to be, this is where you want to play all the new games. Whereas Xbox are like, oh yeah, we're bringing out this really amazing console, but if you don't want to get this, then don't worry, you can get this weaker one, and don't worry, even if you can't get that one, there's an even weaker one than that. And I just think it's like kind of like defeatist straight out of the gate, really.
It is. So yeah, there's multiple ways of looking at it, because I can kind of see both angles. It is the most consumer-friendly approach, saying like, hey, especially with the smart delivery, you bought one version of the game, it works across all the different Xboxes whenever you upgrade. That seems cool, and that does seem really favoring the consumer. But it's also it's tougher to convince people to buy the Xbox Series X if it does run on your basic Xbox model. It just seems harder for them to. There's way more advertising, promotion they have to do to also explain that to the consumer itself. So while it may be easier, it's to keep your base Xbox and everything runs on it. It's just a different approach for Sony, where it's you upgrade to that thing, everything works on it. It's tough, but that's the gamble. That's the way they're going, and at face value, it does seem more positive for consumers. I just worry about them having to always battle that, getting the conversation on track and telling people that they need the Xbox Series X and why do they need it.
But I mean, the thing is as well, to have like a modular sort of system like that, 'cause I suppose it's modular in a way, just that each module is a console in itself, is that you're always looking at what your games could be looking like. I mean, you'll I'm sure you feel the same already from having a PC, is that you're always like, I've got this current build, but if I had an RTX 2080, I could be playing at 4K and it could be looking like this and it could be like this. That's going to be the PS5 in this scenario. If someone buys this mid-range Xbox Series X, they're going to be playing their games and then see people playing these exclusive PS5 titles that are just for PS5, that look incredible, that are running at ridiculous frames and just look really amazing. And you're constantly going to be like, oh, this is great, but that's what I could be having. And I don't think Xbox want their consumers to be looking at a competitor's console and just be like, oh wow, that's real next gen there. Because like, no matter how you sort of look at it, it's going to affect the Xbox exclusive games, because the teams are never gonna have one particular system to get all the juice out of, like they will with the PS5. So I don't know if there's some architectural design that I'm not clever enough to understand that means that it's not going to work like that. But that's just how I see it. I just see it that Xbox don't really seem to care that PS5 are going to have these exclusives are going to look amazing because they're not restricted. I don't think they seem to really care about that, which to me, like I said, I mean, I know they don't necessarily see it as competition, but they should. That PlayStation are their competitors, and PlayStation are the ones taking away their consumers. So I don't know, it just seems strange to me.
Yeah, I feel you on that. It's definitely different approaches. We'll see how that works out, a year or two from now, because they're going to, now it's when they start to explain to consumers what they need, why they need it, why they need the super high-end version, or they don't. when PS5 just has to show you one box, one demo, and it seems like an easier route. But
it might just be because I'm lazy and stupid, and I just like to have one one system. Like, this is the one you have to buy.
Right.
I don't have to. It's kind of like when you look at Ubisoft's like Excel spreadsheets of different versions of games you can buy.
Yeah. All right, Callum. Well, we got some other stuff here. Really, just more news on the PS5 itself. There's some people trying to pick apart how big this thing is actually going to be. So I didn't realize, it seemed like it was maybe a smaller console itself, but people have actually taken the disk drive as a size comparison, also like the USB-C ports on the front, to then compare or to size comparison that with the other like consoles that exist to see where this PS5 actually lands. And it looks like it's a huge fucking console. So one of the articles here I have is from GamesRadar.com. PS5 size comparisons round up very big. So this is Jordan Gerblick of GamesRadar. Last week's PS5 reveal got everybody talking. As one would expect, reactions to the console design range from enamored to disgusted. But a few days later, we're reaching an unanimous conclusion. It's probably going to be very big. By looking at the disk drives and USB ports and scaling them to the dimensions of other consoles, people are giving us an approximate idea of how the size of the PS5 compares to the other modern consoles, namely the PS4, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X. So I have a couple of tweets here that I'm going to pull up on the stream as well. But yeah, so it's using those ports to kind of figure out like how big this thing's going to be. So this first tweet here is Evil Boris HDR has like a size comparison going, and it looks it's pretty beefy. So
yeah,
what are your thoughts if it actually is this big standing up?
I don't know. It's massive. I think it just in general. I think I've actually been kind of going off of the design over the week. I actually not too as keen on it as I was when I first saw it.
Interesting. Okay.
But that is very big. I think I saw something about this or similar to this. I think a spokesperson from Sony came out and said that the design and the shape of it, so I imagine that means size as well, is to do with the thermals and making sure that they can cool the system efficiently, which hopefully if that means that they've made it bigger so it's not as loud, then I'm all for that.
Yeah.
But if it's going to be loud and big, then I'm not all for that.
No. Yeah, it's almost like you would imagine, because they gain that size, they're able to spread heat and maybe more fans or allow more air inside of it to kind of to dissipate air and heat, and hopefully that means a quieter console. Damn, this thing is pretty huge. So there's another size comparison from IGN where they give it like a 15-inch kind of window here compared to like the PlayStation 4 Pro that's like 12 inches, Xbox Series X around 12 inches. And then I guess, laying down, it's not as big of a footprint, if you lay it down. But good luck finding a setup where this can stand up. I mean, I don't think I have any cabinets at home that will support this thing standing up. But.
Yeah, no, it's it looks. I mean, it's kind of like. I mean, if you look at like a PC, I mean, PCs are massive.
Yeah.
In comparison. So I mean, I think it might be like more of a desk jobby than a 4K like a Blu-ray player that I know a lot of people want to use it for. That just makes me want to get the digital version more, because I think the 4K Blu-ray was the only thing swaying me. But after seeing how big it is, I think I'll probably want to have this like at my desk where my PC is.
Yeah.
So I doubt I definitely, because of that, won't be getting the disc drive one.
Yeah, same here. Man, this thing is chunky for sure. I would definitely lay it down. On its side. I wonder are the stands? The stands are never stock with the actual console. Those are always like aftermarket things you have to buy. So, but I wonder, because this one has such a weird shape, if they will throw in some kind of stand that doubles as a vertical stand and a horizontal stand.
I'd be interested to see the comparison between the original PS3, because that was big. As well.
Yeah, I thought I had one like that. Yeah, because I think the PS3 is actually closer to that PS5 size, that original stock one.
I've just found one here. Yeah, so it's still not nearly as big. God,
okay.
Do you know what? I love that original PS3. Like, I think that probably gives me. It's going to make me sound really young, probably, but that design gives me the most nostalgia out of all the consoles.
Interesting,
for sure. I just love it. They're like little green and blue LEDs on it, and that sort of like silver disc drive. Oh, I love it. I love it so much.
This one does call back to that for sure, more and more. I have to try to fight back a sneeze. It calls back to that because that PS3 had a lot of rounded edges to it. It was very bulbous, futuristic with the design shape it took, and this is all taking that same idea and running with it for sure into the future. But it does kind of call back to that more than any other console.
Yeah, for sure.
Nice. Yeah. So just more people trying to pick it apart until we actually get a legit size comparison from Sony, where they actually show this thing next to something else and give us an idea on how big this thing is going to be. But I'm assuming we're not going to be surprised, and it's actually way smaller than this. So I think it's safe to say it's still going to be a pretty big console.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah.
Now there's another update rather on some of the features that they're going to work on with the PS5. I guess they're giving a whole overhaul to the UI, which is awesome. We've talked about that before with the PS4. It's so sluggish, but not only like how efficiently it runs, but like the whole XMB, that whole way you deal with your games and the software is going to be overhauled apparently from the ground up too for PS5. Some of the details here are from The Verge. Sony promises redesigned PS5 dashboard with no pixel untouched. This is Tom Warren of TheVerge.com. Sony showed off its PlayStation 5 console design last week and briefly teased the OS. Now Sony's VP of UX design at PlayStation, Matt McLaurin, is promising an overhauled user interface for the PS5. Describing the new software interface as a very interesting evolution of the OS, McLaurin says it's a 100% overhaul of the PS4 UI and some very different new concepts in a leaked-in thread. As its UI is practical first, it's a whole new visual language and a complete re-architecting of the user interface, explains McLaurin. The new PS5 OS is more subtle than flashy, but no pixels untouched, he adds. And so I added in the actual article, if you want to check it out, it's that boot up screen. This was kind of hidden in the PS5 reveal event, but it's that boot up screen that's going to be in the PS5, and it's just kind of like a simple animation with the sound in it itself. But it just gives us an idea of what we'll expect when we boot up our actual PS5.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nice, isn't it?
I dig it. It reminds me a little bit of the Last of Us with the little particles and stuff. But,
I like this. I think it's the UI is like a huge thing that I've been sort of quite excited for, and I like the idea that it's going to be more subtle than flashy.
Right.
I think the UI is probably the thing I'm most excited about seeing, to be honest. I'm really excited to just use something that feels quick and responsive, because the PS4 might have been quick and responsive once upon a time, but I don't remember.
Yeah, it's funny because I think it was when it first launched, when we played it, but maybe we got used to expecting a certain level of speed as time went on. It's super slow now. I know there's features that have been rumored before with the PS5. There's some kind of like jump into a game instantly ability with like sharing games or demos, and so I wonder if that's something we'll see carried over into this new UI. With SSD, they got to be really promoting speed, so I need to be able to quickly jump in at games, toggle games between each other. I'm hoping that somehow they show that in this UI design.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's. I just want to just be able to, like I said, I like stats and like statistics as well. So it'd be cool to have like how long you've played something, or just a nicely I think more subtle is definitely the right thing, because I think at some points the PS4 is a little bit like it's trying to be a bit graphical. Like when you look at someone's profile and they've got like the trophy bar and then like their games, it's just all a bit messy. I'm really looking forward to having a play around with that.
Yeah, there's similar ideas. Like when I have my desktop set up, I try to not have, and I think you were the opposite, where I try to not have a bunch of icons and stuff on the screen. I like to see my background and see the taskbar on the bottom and just like have it look clean. I'm hoping maybe there's some of that idea where you have like just a desktop mode where maybe there's some kind of animation or a logo, but that's it when you boot it up, and then you can decide to pop more information up, more games up, and you can remove all that and just have like just a background if you want to.
Yeah, that'd be really cool actually, because the amount of times I sort of get in bed, or because my PS4 is in my room, and I just turn my PS4 on, like without even like thinking. I just turn it on, and then it will just hang on the screen. So yeah, it'd be nice to have like a nice desktop thing, or maybe something that like plays through some trailers from the store or something like that. That'd be cool. Just like a nice sort of in the background kind of thing.
Also, I would really dig having a search option. So I have now with the PS4 Pro, I have so many games that are just like backlogged on there, but I have to physically, unless there's an easier way, I have to physically like tab through them. But I haven't figured out a way where you can just search for a game, so you can just snap to that game.
Yeah. I'm not sure there is one. And even if there was, it'd take ages to like open the search bar, and then you'd have to. It'd just be a whole ordeal. So it's probably quicker just to like sort of scroll through.
And that's what I end up doing, and it's just it's very dumb. But and maybe with the whole, because they have the controller having this supposed assistant option where you can talk into your PlayStation controller, it will guide you to whatever. That was one of the rumored features. So maybe you can tell it, PlayStation find whatever game, Last of Us 3, and it will then go find it.
Yeah.
Nice. And so some of the last bit of this article just talked about customization. So McLaurin also teases a maybe in response to a question about changes in the home screen interface, but doesn't reveal any specifics for the PS5 OS. Perhaps more interestingly, McLaurin also hints at custom hardware designs for the PS5 in the future that will go beyond what we're used to with the PS4. This hardware is also customizable in previous ways, and ways previous gens weren't, reveals McLaurin. He even teased a maybe response to a question about a black version of the PS5, and that there will be a special edition for everyone. It's clear we haven't heard every detail about the PS5 hardware or software just yet. Do you think that means something that's like, maybe you can change out like the actual shell of it for like a custom shell or custom colored outside shell, kind of like the Xbox 360 had that faceplate that you could remove and throw a new one on there? Yeah,
I think it definitely looks like you can remove the outer sort of like sheet bits that sort of like they definitely look detachable. I think the only thing is with the disc one, because obviously the disc drive is going to be attached to one of them, that could be a bit of a problem. So
that's true.
I imagine if you had a digital one, you could just change them both if that is what he's referring to. But I wouldn't fancy paying like £100 odd for a 4K Blu-ray drive just so I can change the color of my console. So it'll be interesting to see what he means by that. But I think a black version of the PS5 would be cool. I'd like a black version. But I mean, now that I've sort of seen the white one, and that's sort of like the original, I feel like I'd probably get the white one, just because like I'd feel like I'm not getting the like true PS5 if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah. I wonder if I think it's weird for them to launch with like a different colored SKU. I feel like those days are kind of gone where they do that, but maybe down the line, they actually release some kind of different colored version. Or it's something customizable where you can take off one side of it and switch it out for a different one, or I'll end up probably just like spray painting the thing really if I really want to get a cool color of it. But
so I want to say it was when Destiny came out that they released another base PS4 model which was white, or was that a thing?
I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right that Arctic White or whatever that one was tied to Destiny when it first came out.
Yeah.
So it was a while before we got a special edition one.
Yeah.
Cool. So we got some more info on some of the games that they showed off to at that PS5 event. One of them, the first one, is Horizon Forbidden West. So Horizon Forbidden West aiming for a 2021 launch on PS5. This is The Verge. Shane Gartenberg has the details. Horizon Forbidden West, the sequel to 2017's Horizon Zero Dawn, won't arrive on the PlayStation until 2021. Game director Mathis DeJonge confirmed in a new video, I want to say that's how you say his name, that offered further information on the upcoming title. According to DeJonge, Guerrilla Games is aiming to release the game next year in 2021, meaning that it won't be out when the PS5 launches this holiday season. While there's no footage of Horizon Forbidden West in the video, DeJonge did offer more details about what to expect when the sequel arrives next year. According to DeJonge, the world of Forbidden West is even more detailed than the previous game and also offers a larger map. And thanks to the PS5 super fast SSD, DeJonge promises that there will be virtually no loading screens, with travel, booting up the game, and restarting levels said to take place incredibly quickly. DeJohns also explains that the slightly ridiculous-sounding title refers to a mysterious new frontier that spans the western half of the post-apocalyptic U.S. So we got a confirmation. It's 2021. I think I expected that. I didn't expect that day one because they would have said that. Seems like they need some time to really develop this, but they're also saying this is going to be the biggest map, and that's one thing that keeps getting thrown around with these games, and that doesn't appeal to me anymore. I want just more detail and just more to explore within a smaller experience. But what's your take?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think a lot of this is what you'd expect, especially with the no loading screens and things like that. But yeah, I agree. I think a sort of focus on being bigger is not always the best thing. And in fact, when I found out the length of Last of Us 2, I was a little bit disappointed because I just don't want to spend that much time with a sort of a narrative based game as well. But yeah, I think a bigger map just means more places to put collectathon things, which I think luckily when I played Horizon Zero Dawn, I really liked the setting and it really captured my imagination, and I also hadn't played a game like that in a while, and I think that those kind of collectathon games are really, really like itch scratching in like an OCD way if you haven't played one in a while, but they can get quite annoying. So hopefully a larger map doesn't mean just more of that kind of thing. It's like Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I'm not really sure because it's quite confusing what's been said about that, because I know that the game directors said that it's going to be smaller in terms of the length and the amount of like fetch quests and just like things to do. It's like scaled down slightly, but I think it's also that it's got the biggest map, so I don't know. So I'm hoping that means that developers are starting to realise that bigger doesn't always mean better as well.
I hope so too. I'd rather them spend more time just fully fleshing out the world and making more spaces within it, discoverable. And same with like a GTA style game. I'd rather all the buildings inside be explorable rather than just like keep expanding the world massively. We'll see. I know this with Forbidden West, they have also underwater, so you can do that now. That's a new feature that they're promoting, is that there are going to be more ways to explore and go underwater. So that's another way they can kind of expand the map size. I'm super stoked for it. Also, I didn't expect it anytime soon. I mean, this is something we're going to wait for.
Yeah, and I'd heard something about just like a fleeting thing about there being like San Francisco in the trailer or something.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing that's what like you're saying with the west of the US, which would be quite cool, just to sort of give it that like different environment as well.
Right. Yeah. There was. I wish I had the article pulled up, but they mentioned it's like everything from Utah or Colorado all the way to the West Coast. They're trying to visualize and put in the game. It's not going to be one for one, scale, but they're trying to hit all those points. So in the trailer, they show off the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. I'm sure we'll see some kind of like Northwest region, Southwest region kind of thing. But I think they're going for that whole west side of the Americas, in the game.
Sure.
Yeah, should be dope. I mean, it's a cool setting. I don't know where I guess the other one took place somewhere on the East Coast, Midwest. I don't know.
I can't remember now. It's been such a while since I played it, but I can't remember. I want to say Seattle.
I don't think so. I feel like it was more East Coast, but I could be wrong. I need to replay. I know there's actual landmarks that they show that you can visit that are just super destroyed and old, but so there was some more info on Horizon. Now we also have some more details on Spider-Man Miles Morales. So this is from Insomniac. So they put out a PlayStation blog. So these are just excerpts from that PlayStation blog. But we got more info on that. So quote from them: "You'll experience a full story arc with Miles, one that's more akin to a game like Uncharted: The Lost Legacy in terms of overall scope. Also, instant loading, 3D audio, ray tracing, and an overhauled city." So they did kind of confirm. I guess there was drama over the weekend after that event. Whether is this going to be like a full-fledged release or is this like a DLC kind of thing? And I interpreted it as more like Lost Legacy, just like a smaller experience, but still fully fleshed out. And that's what they're saying this will be. Do you think we get the full New York or this, the same size? I feel like they can fit that in.
Yeah, I think maybe like a similar size. I mean, the map wasn't too big anyway in the first Spider-Man game. So I imagine it'll probably be a similar thing. Maybe like a little bit scaled down or so, but I don't mind. I mean, I actually liked Uncharted Lost Legacy a lot more than Uncharted 4. I think that it felt like, with all the new additions that was in Uncharted 4, I think they were the things that made it a bit weaker, in my opinion, like the more explorative parts of the car and all that. And I feel like Lost Legacy, they sort of understood it a bit better and just made it far better. There's actually something Jason Schreier said on Twitter today about it, which I don't know if you saw, which sort of nailed it really. And he said, he retweeted somebody who said, hot take, Uncharted Lost Legacy is better than the full Uncharted games.
I did
which actually gives me hope about the Miles Morales game, which I actually do agree with. And then Jason Schreier said that game developers often say that it only really feels like you know how to make a game once you've already made that game. So that knowledge plus the tech and tools can lead to really good stuff. So I think that what he's basically trying to say is that, you know, all the things that maybe weren't quite perfect with Spider-Man, that the developers will now know and that they will perfect for this standalone game. So normally these standalone games do iron out any minor issues and make for, you know, like a really, really special experience. It's just like with Wolfenstein, the old Blood as well. Because that was a similar thing, you know, standalone DLC, and that was awesome. Had some really cool new additions, and so I'm really, really excited for this. And I see some people are like moaning that it's not a fully fledged sequel, but I don't think it's a problem at all. I think it's nice to have a manageable game, maybe a smaller, like shorter game. I think that's cool. And just going over what I just said then, I think it'll probably be a really well realized and polished game as well.
Yeah, I didn't. It was totally off my radar. Like when I went on Twitter later that day, or I think it was like Saturday, Sunday, to see a lot of the anger or hate. I didn't share any of that at all. No. I thought it would be cool, and I didn't expect. I guess whether it was like a full $60 experience, you know, whatever that length is, versus something that's more like Lost Legacy. I wasn't expecting a full-blown title because it's been like 2 years, maybe a year and a half since the last Spider-Man. I mean, it really hasn't been that long. So to expect them to be ready with a full-blown release is kind of insane. So I didn't expect that, but I guess people did, and they were angry. But I know I love the idea of them doing like a Lost Legacy style. I don't know what that means for the fact that it's going to be the same overall size physically of the city, unless in the story they somehow explain why half the city is like locked off for some reason, or it's like not in Manhattan, it's in, you know, some other part of New York. I think they confirm it's still going to be in the same part of New York. So they're going to do something to kind of scale it down somewhat, but I
mean, like you said, they've already got that city ready to go.
Right.
All they have to do is, you know, up-res it. Like you said, they've got ray tracing in there, so they've just got to like just touch it up a little bit. And obviously we've seen that there's like a snowy weather in there, so add some weather stuff to it. I mean, it's probably to overhaul the city, like it says in your notes, with all these new things. I think that's probably less or about the same amount of work that would have gone into something like Lost Legacy, where they had to build all these brand new environments from the ground up.
That's true, they did.
So I don't think it's necessarily. It's probably very likely that we will get the whole city, just because this is a standalone DLC. Really, it's not. It's probably going to reuse a lot of that city and like it says in your notes, just overhaul it.
Yeah, and I mean, you have to have the city there for Spider-Man. He's got to have tons of buildings for him to zip around. So I think it's safe to say we're going to have the same size New York. And what they do is they innovate on the graphical stuff. They add a new storyline, and we're good. I guess maybe the next battle with consumers, with the reception, is, do they charge $60 for this, or do they charge $40 for this? I don't know if that's going to anger people if they demand $60. But if you have the same size New York with better graphics, a full-fledged, you know, like 8-hour campaign, then I think you can demand $60 for it.
Yeah. Well, I imagine that this goes on to sort of a slightly different topic, but I think that games will be more expensive for next gen.
Do you?
Just because they've never changed in price. They've always been. I mean, if you look at like old NES and SNES game magazines, games back then were £50-60. and they're still that price now. And if you take into account inflation, they should be well over £100 if we were to sort of keep that same price. So I think that there has to be some sort of balance in that respect, because I understand that games are obviously a lot bigger now, they sell more, so maybe they can afford to sell them at what is really a lower price. But I think also with the fact that subscription services seem to be working really well, with Xbox Game Pass, EA Access, which is now on PlayStation, is coming over to Steam. I'm sure there's another one. Obviously PlayStation Now, which could take on a different form with PS5. We never know. I think maybe they might be a good way to to sort of have some damage control on the fact that games might be increasing in price. But also I would also imagine that this won't be full price. I don't think this will be the same price as whatever Spiderman 2 is going to be or whatever. You'd have to imagine it'll be. I mean, I'd be happy to pay like £30 for it. Maybe even £40, considering it's a next gen game. But yeah, you're right. There's going to be some sort of outrage no matter what the price is.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting battle for them, what they actually end up pricing this as. Unless they can show, like, hey, this is enough or the same amount of content that you'd find in that last Spider-Man, then you could demand the same retail full
How much
price.
was Lost Legacy?
That one was a smaller price point. So in the States, it was $40, which is like usually that next tier that they go down from. When it's not $60 for a retail, it's $40. So it's like a bit of a chunk missing, like a 20% drop in price. But yeah, usually they will bring it down to that when it's something that's a smaller experience. Yeah. So I think I think $40 would be a really good price for it, but yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there's just maybe like a $10 bump on every game that comes, every AAA game that comes out on PS5. Just because there has to be some sort of pull at some point, because although there are, like I said, bigger audiences, so they're going to make more money. Yeah,
they're also a hell of a lot more expensive to make, and obviously with inflation, that those prices do not mean the same thing as they did back when the NES and the SNES was a thing. And I've got Resident Evil 4 on PS2. And like the receipt's still inside it, and that was £50. Yeah. And obviously that was from years ago now.
Right, like 98 or something, yeah.
So it's going to be, I wouldn't be surprised, let's put it that way, if games went up in price.
Gotcha. I hear you on that, and that does make sense. You think that they would raise in price. I feel like these companies are weary of raising the price, and what they've done instead is adding these other loot boxes or other items, customizable items, cosmetic stuff. I think that's why we haven't seen the price raise in games retail wise, is because they've instead offered other ways to nickel and dime you. And I don't know, I go back and forth. Maybe I prefer that because that keeps the base model of games down or at this current state, and then you have other people buying whatever versions of games, or that's also where they'll do the special edition, a DLC that comes with this other customizable thing, if you see The Last of Us, there's a digital deluxe, there's all this other bullshit versions you can buy that are 70, 80, they raise in price for those people that want to buy that, but there's also, they keep the base model the same retail price as it's been. So maybe you just introduce, and that's what they've been doing so far, introducing other ways to spend more money on it, and I'm hoping that they just keep doing that and not just raise them all. Raise them all $10 or so, but you're right, that something has to give. I think the give has been offering these other options, but if that, assuming that keeps working, then they just keep doing that same model. If that doesn't, then we will see a price increase across the board. We'll have to.
I think, because I think you're right. I think that is how they've been trying to sort of leverage that extra sort of cost, is through loot boxes and a lot more DLC, especially day one DLC and things like that. But I think what you're seeing now is because of the such huge outcry of negativity that brings on. I think you're starting to see companies slow down on that. I mean, you see Ubisoft, like I was saying earlier, talking about how they're going to take out a lot of their microtransactions that was in Assassin's Creed Odyssey. for the next game, and you see lots of games starting to have less and less of this. So you don't know. I don't know whether it means that the games industry as a whole is moving away from that, which will then mean that games will cost more. So it's kind of like you're trading, not having to have these storefronts or these things for so that your games will be, complete. Which I don't really like that term, but for an extra $10 or so. But yeah, I suppose I'm like you. I don't mind the storefronts. I accept that they are probably predatory to some people who, especially in games like FIFA, where you might. I mean, I've done it before, mostly in like mobile games where you play a mobile game for like 2 days and you're like sucked into paying like a couple of dollars here and there for like some gems or whatever. So I mean, personally, I believe that those kind of things don't have a place on console games just because you're already paying for the game. So I don't really want to, because the amount of money those storefronts make is so much that they might as well make those games free to play. That's why all these phone games are free to play with storefronts, because those storefronts make them enough money they don't need to charge.
Right.
But I can also see why they're very easy to just ignore and enjoy the base games for what they are. I think Shadow of War is a good example of this, where there was a huge outcry from the microtransactions in that, and I didn't even realise that there were microtransactions in it until I got near the end of the game. So there are easy ways to ignore these things, but I do also understand the negativity around it too.
Yeah, it's a tough conversation, because I think, especially, there are games that, even current gen games, that could demand a higher price point. Say like Red Dead 2, or look at Cyberpunk coming up. Cyberpunk, CD Projekt Red could say, you know what, this game's gonna be $100, and we would all go, yeah, that sounds about right. Look at all the content, look how beautiful it is. I think there's games that could demand that. I guess where it becomes weird is if, a lot of companies don't really just take it on their own to create their own price point unless they're dropping the price. It's rare. I don't ever see it at all if anybody raising the price and just like letting that one item be risen in price. But like, it seems like people are wary of that. Developers are wary of that, or publishers rather. But there are games that could demand that, and I think it'd be fair. Like, you could maybe even Last of Us 2, they could charge more for it because it's going to be the top tier kind of experience AAA game. But nobody really goes that route. So they must. I'm sure they have super smart people analyzing all this data, analyzing how much we can actually afford as consumers. They just go barely to what we can't, afford. They go slightly below that or whatever. So they must be. We're also facing a recession, so at least in the States and globally, shit's going down. So I don't know if now's the right time to raise it.
That's a good point. Yeah,
but they would raise it if they could. I feel like these companies would raise it if they found that there was we could pay and would pay that price. So I think they must keep it at the current state because of the whatever data they've analyzed.
Yeah, and I mean, just on that topic, I hate it when you see the argument that people are like, remember when we'd pay like £40 for games and there'd be like and they wouldn't have any DLC. It's like, I never paid £40. I've never paid £40 for games. I don't think anybody has, and I think the games were more likely to. I think more games retailed at £40 for sure, but these big AAA games have always been the same price.
Yeah.
Like I said, you can just Google any SNES magazines, which are like some of the first proper games consoles, to see how much money those games cost. And because it's such a common argument as well that I see online all the time, where people who are sort of trying to take the mick out of DLC and incomplete games, and it's like I feel like there is definitely an argument to be had there, but to sort of talk about the price of games and how it's changed, I think that's just wrong. Like, it's just not correct.
I see that same argument, and they assume that it's been cheaper in the past. It really hasn't. I mean, look at Nintendo. No. They never dropped the price on their first party games ever. I remember Super Mario 64 when it was actually out in retail. I think I remember being at Walmart as a kid and always watching it, and it never dropped from its price. It was $60 in the US forever. Yeah. And it just never dropped, and that's because that's how it's been for a long time. It's maybe now is the cheapest time to play games because there's so many deals on stuff, and you can buy used. They're just before it was not like that. So this argument that games are getting more expensive or they've been cheaper in the past, that's not the case.
No, not at all. And it's so much, like you're saying, it's so much easier to get these deals because now you've got all these storefronts that have these insane deals that you probably would have never seen before. Whereas before that, you'd have to, think of a shop, like you'd have to go to like one of your stores, the nearest store, and just find it and pray it's on a good deal. If it's not, you've already made that journey, so you're gonna have to pay whatever they're selling it for.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you're right. It's probably the cheapest time to play games now. But I just think I think people rightly so are so annoyed about DLC and things like that.
I understand that.
Yeah, I can understand it as well. But I love DLC. I don't like day one DLC or things like that. But I love DLC. Like with Borderlands 3, I bought some of the DLC for that, and it was just a perfect way to get back into a game that I platinumed it, so I had no reason to go back to it. And so it was a nice way just to give me a reason to go back to it.
Especially when you're in those multiplayer games where your build like carries over and you can keep progressing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because they like raise the level cap and things like. Yeah, I love that. I think it's a really cool way to extend the life of a game. Because like I've been saying with Persona, which I still haven't finished, you don't want to just constantly be on the same game forever and ever. You want to, I was so happy when I finished Borderlands 3 and 100%ed it. I was pleased to put it away. But then I was equally as pleased a few months later to like revisit it because I was like remembering things, and like you said, my level cap was raised, so I still had some progression to do. And I think DLC is great. It's a great way just to continue supporting a game that otherwise you probably wouldn't play again.
Right.
But that reminds me, I was going to ask because do you have any platinum trophies?
I have one. It's it's this game called Donut County. I don't know if you ever remember playing.
Oh yeah, you said yeah.
It's this weird kooky kind of like just a funny game, almost like Katamari Damacy, where it's like you're rolling stuff. This one you're just swallowing stuff into a hole, and the writing's really funny, and it's just this cute world. That's my only platinum.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'm
so
close, but that's only.
I was going to say, are you gonna go for the platinum on Last of Us 2, considering it's a special occasion?
I don't think so. I mean, I think I tried that and I got close with the PS3 version of The Last of Us. But I came down to you had to go online to do the multiplayer stuff to get some of the. I want to say you had to do some of those trophies that were the part of that multiplayer aspect of it, and I just didn't do it, and so I just gave up. But I think I was close
It was a tough trophy list, to be honest. It was quite because you had to finish it on the hardest difficulty and then do it again on New Game Plus, and so you had to complete it quite a few times. The collectibles were like a pain as well, but I think
there were some I missed.
I think Last of Us 2 is meant to have a nicer trophy list in that respect, but it is also longer, so it probably balances out in that way. But yeah, no. Luckily, I loved the multiplayer in Last of Us, so although even if you love the multiplayer, those trophies are hard to get because you have to finish like the journey or whatever it is, which means you have to basically like play really well for like a certain amount of games so that all your people don't die. So they're still tough. They're still tough trophies to get, even if you enjoy the multiplayer. And they take a while as well. So it was a tough trophy list, that one. But I think I'll definitely be getting the platinum in that. I like to get them in like the big games that I really like.
I wish I had the same ability to follow through. I seem to like give up on most games, but I've gotten it close a couple of times, but never finally just got all the stuff. I think Resident Evil 2 I got fairly close. I'd have to look through my list again. I think just like a month ago I was going through them. But so far I just Donut County, and I love that game. But it's also a super easy platinum though, so it wasn't some cool achievement on my end.
No, I have seen Donut County actually. It does look quite funny. But yeah, no, to be honest, I'm the same. I very easily just bail out of trying to get a platinum trophy. But like, there's some games like Final Fantasy VII Remake, which is a game I'd been like looking forward to for so long, where I was like, I will not be able to have my trophy list and not have a platinum next to this game. Like, it's just this weird like meta thing I have where like if it's a game I really love, I just have to at least get like a respectable percentage on it. Yeah. Just so that I can feel happy and content in my heart that It's kind of like I didn't enjoy it if I didn't get a good chunk of the trophies.
Right. Yeah, I hear on that, and I respect it. I just I need to just up my game when it comes to that stuff, and I just
don't! It's awful. I wish I didn't care. So don't try and make yourself care, because it's a long, dark and slippery road to take.
Nice, Callum. Well, yeah, we'll end it there. That's all our news for this week. Where can they find you online?
Bear Monroe on Twitter, and that's about it really.
Cool, awesome. You can keep up with the show on Twitter as well, Plastic Heart Pod. That's it for us this week. We'll see you guys next week. Bye.
See you later.
You're too late. I've already summoned Meteor.
Okay, let's go.